Imagine waking up one day and realizing everything you thought you knew about an investigation was built on a foundation of failure. The deeper you dig, the worse it gets. What if the truth had been buried under incompetence, or worse, intentional deception? And that's what we're tackling today. Welcome back, Tentacle Nation. We're diving into the next section of my interview with Darren, who was with the Invisible Ships podcast, the team that originally covered this case. And before we get into it, I want to make something very clear. I don't want to keep harping on how this investigation was botched. It was, beyond belief. And if you think I'm wrong, I sincerely hope you can prove it. If you worked on this investigation and you want to come on this show or contact me anonymously, please do. Prove me wrong, because with what I have in front of me, this investigation was a disaster. I can't even believe some of these documents are considered supplemental reports. But I digress. I needed to spend time on this to show you, Tentacle Nation, how we got here. There's still a massive amount of disinformation floating around about this case, and that's something we need to address. I'm considering doing a live segment, a roundtable discussion, where we try to filter out the misinformation. I haven't reached out to anyone yet, but let me know in the comments if you'd like to see Darren, Victoria Macron, and myself, maybe some others, go live to clear up the noise. The sooner we do that, the sooner citizen detectives can step in and really start helping. The reality is this: I rarely solved a homicide without the assistance of the public in some manner. Investigators are not there when the incidents occur, but the public's help is often what cracks the case wide open. I also need to address something disturbing. This is happening on social media. There's been an organized effort using fake profiles to attack Byron Macron's wife. It's completely unhinged and inhumane. No matter what you believe about what happened to Byron, attacking his wife is beyond reprehensible. And let me be clear, if this continues, I will take action. I already know who several of you are. You're not as slick as you think. If you're going to use fake profiles to harass and intimidate people, maybe try hiding your account history a little better. I was a detective, remember? Some of those skills still work just fine. And if this harassment keeps up, I have no issue filing a civil tort complaint naming John Doe as the defendant and issuing subpoenas for your fake accounts. I will not allow you to intimidate the people trying to tell the truth about this case. Now, let's get into part 2 of my interview with Darren Knapp. Stick around. I'll probably have some final thoughts afterwards.
And he received a call from Brian saying, "Hey, I'm out of town. I have this angry resident that's contacting me, and can you put an extra car or do some keep an eye on my house?" And so that's kind of, it's interesting. That's first that I know of that this angry resident comes up. The people that knew about the angry resident included, Brian, Victoria, Linda, Mike, the maintenance man, and then the secretary also in the township hall, and Sergeant Stanford. So that's kind of where, and also, and also one of the firefighters. It's the same gentleman that was one that pulled Brian out of the lake. Also reported about this angry resident. Okay, that Brian had said that to them. Brian, Linda, Mike, the maintenance man, and the secretary knew that there was a meeting that morning, supposedly. So Brian was saying that but he never mentions the names. And so he was supposed to arrive. So the story goes for the 16th was that Rick was going to get there. Okay. He was going to pull out one of the dump trucks. He was going to have Sergeant Sanford pull his car in. Sergeant Sanford was going to go hide in the closet. Okay. And Brian was going to be there. He told the secretary to come in an hour later because I don't know what this guy's going to be like. He also had said to Mike Costello, "I want you to be in there as well, acting like you're signing papers with because Mike Costello had some silk hair. So he's going to have That way, just in case. So when the maintenance guy showed up, that was his intention, was he was gonna go in there and he's gonna pull it out. So that's kind of why the maintenance man turned around and called Mike Costello and Jim Stanford, because he thought that something happened before he got there. So Jim Stanford says, I didn't know any of that stuff. I would never do that. I would never pull my car in and try to do this like weird ambush thing. Didn't know about it. The only thing I knew about was that he talked about it a while ago. We were kind of patrolling more of the house, but I didn't know who it was. No name mentioned. No name was ever mentioned of who this should be. So everybody said that the meeting was at the township hall, except for on the 16th, there's a phone call that comes into the sheriff's department from the firefighters that I mentioned that knew about it. And that's when he reported, he goes, hey, Brian said he had the meeting and he mentions it being at Chippewa Lake, which is interesting.
Do you have that?
I don't now. I can get it though. I'm sure I can find it. The other Facebook page that you're on, I'm sure has it on there if you scroll up. Not the Justice for Brian one. Yeah, but okay. I can find it. But he reports that that it happened at Chippewa Lakes, which is interesting. So because those are the two locations where Brian was that day. So so there's this angry resident. Yes, go ahead.
They did like when they're on scene. I think the deputies are asking somebody at some point, and I think it is one of the firemen, or maybe it's not the fireman. I can't remember who it is, but the deputies are asking, and somebody supposedly gets on the phone and calls maybe one of the firemen and says, "Well, who is this angry? Do you know anything about this angry resident?" And there actually are some names that are produced, right?
I think so, but I don't. So I dismissed angry resident for until that report. Until actually Forrest Thompson closed the case. I'm like, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. We don't know who it is, and why would he get up out of the middle of the night to go see the angry? Sure, I'll move it up to 2 a.m. because that sounds like a great time to meet somebody, right? I mean, you wouldn't do that,
I thought it was. I guess the reason I brought it up is I thought it was interesting because, to my knowledge, there's nothing in the investigation where anybody followed up with the names. And like I said, I don't put a lot of stock into the whole angry resident as we were talking. It's still out there. It's very still possible. But I just thought it was interesting that nobody followed up with it. Nobody even talked to those people.
And then his phone had the I think it was switched at 4:22. It was put on to come up as a reminder on his phone, and it said meeting with angry residents.
I was trying to find the photo. I can't find it. I thought it would be in the administration photos, but I don't see it. I don't know where it's at.
So it's weird. I don't know exactly where his phone was found, because it was found kind of all moved around, but I think it was right as soon as you walk in, it was sitting there. His wallet was at his house. And then his car keys were in his car when it was left there. There's reports of the seat being up farther in his car, than what he would have had it, somebody short drove it. There's an eyewitness sighting of a person around the car between 6:30 and 7. There's 2 really eyewitnesses, one of which was not interviewed that I can see by the sheriff, and per him, did not get interviewed by the sheriff's department. But they both described the person similarly, as wearing a hoodie and not dressed for the weather, and shorts with the hood up. They both described that person. The difference between the two is one describes him going north, and the other one describes him going south. Now, it's a jogger that describes him going north. It does seem like she might have been there first, or she might have seen him first. But when she went to do her lap back around, he was gone. This other one describes him going south, like on beachside, actually not even on beachside, but kind of going along the lake south. When you listen to Charlie Snyder and you look at his like summary of the case, he feels like the jogger's recollection is like the key to the puzzle, and he feels that was Brian. So basically, the official idea is that he parked his car on Beachside Boulevard. He walked north on Beachside Boulevard and probably just walked into the marsh area, which would have been hard and frozen. Laid down to come to the cold weather. When it melted, because it went from really cold till pretty like 50 degrees or something like that. So there was a decent amount of water that would have melted off, enough that washed him into Chippewa Lake, which does have a very mild current, where he would have, gone into the main part of the lake found by the kayaker. So that's the original. That's the story from from the agency.
All right, so I want to flip around a little bit. So this is the supplemental report. This is talking about the jogger, and the one thing that I thought was interesting is the jogger, and I may be incorrect, so correct me if I'm wrong. She initially tried to reach out to the sheriff's department back when this occurred, correct?
I believe so.
And nobody really followed up with her for quite some time, it looks like. So,
yeah.
So whatever, my point is obviously if you have a witness, you want to interview that witness as fast as possible because you want them to remember as much as possible. And it just seemed like that they waited forever to interview her. But he does state, and she could not confirm, but she's pretty certain it was the same day that she saw a vehicle parked further down on Beachside, which was in the playground parking lot. So there was a second vehicle. I don't think she actually ever saw Brian's vehicle, which was parked at the beach, but he says that she thinks, she's pretty certain, the same day she sees a SUV parked at the playground. So I had asked just the other day, I think I mentioned it to you, I actually went down to Beachside because there's an address, I won't put it out there, the person doesn't get doxxed, but it's public record, but there's an address that had a camera that has Brian's car going north on Beach at a certain time, and then 3 minutes later, the car passes back, Brian's car passes back from this house. And so I was just sort of curious, I'm like, I'm trying to hypothesize in my mind, essentially if this is self-inflicted, that he did it himself, why would he just be like randomly driving along Beachside? So I just said, well, how far could he make it down? Where would he have maybe gone, the car?
Camera footage is from the Village Inn here. Well, vehicle supposedly matching Brian's. So Village Inn here, he passes Village Inn here. Now, from a video from 130 Beachside, we're still on Longacre. Beachside is the T intersection up here. So he could have continued down straight, or he could have turned right at the road there at the stop sign that we just passed. But this is Beachside here. So he's traveling south to north. So if we turn right, we're going north. And that's where his car was, right there, found. So, all right, so we're going northbound, and he passes 130 Beach. And that's 129. So it's going to be this White House, I'm assuming. There's no address. I'm assuming this is 130. Yes. All right, so 130 Beachside is to our right here. That's 130 Beachside. So it's describing that we pass 130 Beachside, which is this house on the right. And then 3 minutes later. So hang on, let's just see if they're in theory. Hang on, let's go back and time this. In theory, how far could we make it down Beachside in 3 minutes? Let's do that. So, do we have a handy dandy? Let's get our handy dandy stopwatch feature going. All right, so we're going to go 3 minutes down Beachside. Where does that take us? Honestly, I think that's going to take us, and we're going to just go the speed limit. 3 minutes is a long time, folks. I think that we could actually make it all the way down to the inlet in 3 minutes. All right, but we're going to do 1.5 minutes because in theory he would have been back at the house at 3 minutes. So let's do 1.5 minutes. We're at 30 seconds now. We are at 40 seconds. We are at 50 seconds. We are at 1 minute. A minute 10. A minute 20. So a minute 30, and we've gotten down to Lee Lore Lane, and I've been going slightly below the speed limit. Going slightly below the speed limit. So let's get back to this position and film the way back. Doing so legally, so I don't get charges filed on me by Medina County here when I post the video. So is this the all right, so this is the parking lot here. All right, let's get back to 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's where we were. Not gonna go. All right, so let's come back to Lee Lore. So, folks, if we were going above the speed limit, we probably could have easily made it to the inlet or anywhere around where we are. All right, so we're back at about the position, and again, I was going slightly below the speed limit. So we're going to start the stopwatch again. Obviously, we're going to end up back at that house around 3 minutes. So this is just not really making a lot of sense to me, unless somewhere in between here, if someone was in the car with Brian. Folks, when I originally was recording this and I was trying to demonstrate how far the vehicle could have made it down, I had not yet read the supplemental by the Jogger given to the Medina County Sheriff's Department. The original statement, she did not actually get asked about it during the BCI interview. However, in her original statement, she stated she thought the same day that a vehicle was parked down by the playground, and that's why I'm inserting it here. It would make sense why Brian's vehicle was traveling past 130 Beachside down this direction if there was another vehicle that could have been possibly the follow vehicle that left with Brian's vehicle in the administrative building. That is sort of making sense to me. I was just trying to understand if this was self-inflicted, why he would just be randomly driving around Beachside. But this could be a key factor if there was another vehicle parked here. They either, I don't know, picked somebody up, or they threw Brian out of the car somewhere along this line. So we're at 240, 245, and I think we're going to actually hit this house here before, well, yeah, it's going to be about 3 minutes. We're 251, 255, so yes, 3 minutes, we're back to the house. All right, so he's supposedly passing this way, and right ahead, the way the car was positioned is it looked like he literally, whoever was driving, literally just came up to the stop sign here. I'm going to stop. Who knows if they did. Came up to the stop sign and then pretty much just parks the car right here. And when they park the car, there is no footprints and or blood anywhere around. And there was blood all over the place, blood on the sidewalk at the administration building, which would sort of say to me that if it is somebody else involved with this, that Brian's no longer in the car at this point. Brian's no longer in the car, because otherwise, if he leaves from this point, I'm assuming you're going to see blood. I would hope that the investigators would be able to figure out that there was blood. Right. I don't know, though.
And I almost made it to the inlet. And I was actually going below the speed limit. I almost made it to the inlet and back to the house on Beachside in the 3 minute mark. So then I got back and I saw this interview, and I think it's very interesting, because now if there's a vehicle at the playground, was that the follow vehicle or the second vehicle, we'll say, that pulled out of the administration building? And was whoever was in Brian's car, whether it was Brian or somebody else, were they essentially meeting, swapping, doing something at the playground before they brought Brian's car back? And so I thought that was extremely interesting.
Yeah.
Which I had also reviewed the interview for the Rangers, and I know we spoke about it a little bit. Did you happen to listen to it again, or?
I'm pretty familiar with it, but I haven't listened to it like in the last couple of days.
Okay, well, I mean, So I thought it was very interesting. The Rangers were very adamant that they went out and the first thing I thought was very interesting is the chief ranger was basically stating when he received the call, or I'm assuming they're probably on a shared radio system, so he's hearing all this activity. I'm assuming, or somebody called him specifically, but his recollection is that it was a bloody, or a quote, bloody mess in float, and that made him believe that he was looking for a body, that he wasn't necessarily looking for somebody alive. But he went down and conducted a pretty extensive search of Chippewa Lake, beachside, especially when the car was found. He went down and looked at beachside pretty thoroughly, and he stated he could not observe any foot tracks. He couldn't see any foot tracks on the lake. He said that there was no breakage in the lake, and he actually stated that they did follow up for the next a couple days. His rangers went back and double checked essentially each day, and I guess he had actually made a quote to the rangers: "Hey, I don't want to find a body in spring, so let's make sure that we're following up and checking, for breakage on ice and so on and so forth." And they're all very adamant that there was no activity around the lake except for I think they maybe some ice shanties or something of that nature, but there was no activity, which I thought was very interesting. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, because you got to. So the photos tell you, there's ice all the way around. So highly unlikely Brian was in the water that day. So you just don't know. But the Rangers interview is definitely really gives you a lot of. They walked the whole perimeter of the lake. They looked underneath Chippewa Road Bridge, which is where some people thought that he could have been. They did a flyover with the highway patrol, but that did not have any thermal ability. But they did a gridiron flyover. Now they had drones. So Brian, believe it or not, was the guy to get the drone company. He did like a little drone stint, like a sales rep, and he was able to get the company to donate the drones to the sheriff's department. But they didn't put it up. I think it's because the plane was up, so they didn't want two things in the same spot. But really, that had thermal imaging, or heat sensitive, so it could have maybe if Brian was there, found them, but they didn't do it.
And the other interesting thing is, and you are correct, I actually just reviewed that supplemental that interview. I'm sorry, that I think it was Sergeant Sanford had a drone. I guess he had a drone in his car. But he stated he didn't want to put it up because the OSP plane was there, because it's obviously a violation of FAA. So he didn't want to put his drone up because of that. But I thought it was very interesting, the interview with some of the firefighters. Brad Winters seemed pretty dismayed because apparently they had equipment, all-terrain vehicles, all sorts of thermal imaging equipment that could have aided in their search. That apparently that was never called out. But I think when you come back to it, when you listen to the interviews, they're talking, well, I think they honestly did a very half-assed job only because they thought that Brian was in California for some reason. I meant to bring that back and ask you, is there anywhere that I'm missing? Where did this California theory come from?
So, because I asked Victoria that too. I'm like, you guys go to he traveled because he was with the jewelry and stuff. But, so, I'm sure he was in California at different times. But, no, there's no so think about it though. How can you get to California? It's like, what is this, Grand Central Station in Chippewa Lake, where you can just hop on a train or a plane or the intersection of some great highways with no phone, no wallet, no car, and you're just gonna no bag pack, no missing clothes, he had to have gone somewhere because Lafayette Township, you can get anywhere from there. What? How do you even start there?
I thought maybe just legit. I thought I missed something because why would you say California? Why not theorize like you went to Florida or Russia I mean, where did California comes from? I don't even know. It
I
kills
don't know. He never lived there. He didn't, like, I'm sure he was in that state at different points. I can't say I'm sure, but I would venture to say he was in that state at different points because of his job, but wasn't a frequent flyer to California. There's no interview that I got where he mentioned like, oh man, I would just love to, hightail it out to California. Like there's no, like, I mean, this guy, like when you look at his, like so going back to that timeline, when you look at his last text, or it's on the WhatsApp, between 15th and 16th, he was responding about, getting a tracking number for diamonds that he was sent, and he responded at 12:30 a.m. Saying that he's going to do it in the morning. I mean, if this is a guy that's trying to do something that seriously harm himself, why would he even mess with it, right? Why would he? Don't you kind of cash out a little bit towards the end, or?
And that's what. He had just received $50,000 worth of diamonds. And so again, I try to look at both sides. Everybody is talking about how he did this to himself. Yeah, exactly. You just got $50,000 worth of diamonds, which to fast forward and so everybody understands, at the end the company came back, did an inventory, everything was accounted for. None of the jewelry was missing. So you just get $50,000 worth of jewelry. If you were going to, do this self-inflicted, why wouldn't you cash that out? Why wouldn't you take advantage of that 50,000? Or like you said, if it's initially in their theory, he's running to California, but why would you not take the jewelry, essentially cash them in, get money, get cash out? It just, there's so many like little intricacies, and we're probably not even covering half of them, honestly. But you guys did like 6 episodes, so it's impossible to do a recap of 6 episodes in one episode here. But it just didn't make any sense to me, and a lot where they thought that he did it himself, and again, initially they thought he was in California, so. Again, he just got $50,000 worth of diamonds. I think there was other things. I'm like going back in my head, but he had access to other things had he just skipped to California like they were initially theorizing. But I'm trying to remember. Do you have that? Do you mind playing that interview, or do you have that interview queued up?
Which interview?
The witness with the second witness that was never interviewed by the sheriff's department.
Oh, I had it on my phone. Do you think I can play it through my phone, or is that like really bad?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, let me get that.
And this is just why he's looking, folks.
This is not great tech here, but can you hear it okay?
Yep.
Interview people.
So it's gonna. This is our podcast. It's gonna. I don't have the actual. It's gonna flip to him really soon here.
There was a couple that approached me and said, "My son is too afraid," but he saw something that night.
Okay.
And he made reference that his son works like a second job, and he was going into work that night.
We know exactly who Victoria is talking about. His name is Michael Taylor. He's a listener to this podcast, and he reached out to us. So we had an opportunity to sit down and talk to Michael Taylor, and he told us exactly what he thought.
So, at the time I was working up there at Blue Beacon Turnbull. I was trying to clear some TA. And I think I was at night shift at that time. And I got off at about 7 a.m. Usually 7 a.m. back then. I might have left a little bit early that day because we were slow. But my parents, they live over there at Chippewa Lake. And I was heading to Chippewa there on Lake Road. I was gonna drive down by the water to see if it was frozen over because I was the one that do some ice fishing. And I didn't think nothing of it. I got down there to the stop sign, to make that right-hand turn by the beach, and I seen that black car sitting there, and I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't even hear anything yet. Obviously, but this was before they even, everybody showed up down there, the cops and whatnot. But I did. What was weird to me was somebody was walking. There's a basketball court down there. Somebody was walking away from the beach area on the other side of the basketball court, and they're wearing, I think it was like a black hoodie or something, like a jacket or something with a hood on it that was black. And the weird thing to me was they were in shorts.
Okay.
And if you remember that day or anything, it was really cold that morning. So, I mean, that was just weird to me. Like I said, I didn't think nothing of it at the time. But now that all this is being circulated, I was like, well, maybe that could have been something.
Did you see the guy get into that car that was waiting?
No, I didn't see anybody get into the car. But I just seen that person down there walking away. Like, I think there's like railroad ties, like the wood that kind of line the water right there on the other side. They're right there walking with their head down, right up against the edge of the water.
How would you describe the car? Like make and model?
I'm not sure on the make, but it was an SUV.
So it was black. It's probably like a Suburban or something.
Yeah, something like that. It had four doors, had I don't know if it was third row, but it had like the longer back.
Okay.
What time? You said you got off work at roughly so you think a little before 7, you think, or what time were you?
Yeah, it was between 6:30 and 7 a.m. That morning.
Okay, so this person was walking away. How far away from the car, in your estimation, do you think he was when you saw him first?
I'm guessing it's probably, I want to say like 100 feet, 150 feet maybe.
And the car was just sitting there running?
Yeah, it was kind of like at an angle. It wasn't like quarter to a spot or nothing. It just looked until we pulled over, just sitting there, taking a break or whatever, just looking, but I didn't see anybody in the car. I just seen that person.
Can you describe more of that person? Like how tall, how heavy?
They were probably roughly 6 foot. I'm terrible at judging weight, but I'm just guessing probably between 175 and 200 maybe.
It's like
They
normal.
weren't really heavy. Yeah, they just look like a normal person.
White person?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you just pulled around, thought it was funny that this guy was walking with shorts and a hoodie?
I mean, that's private property over there, and there's no path or nothing. I think at that time they were still building that big house that was just going up down the hill right there.
Yeah, the house on the hill. Now, you're kind of familiar with the area, because you said your parents lived there, so you go in there a lot. Well, this wouldn't be somebody that you could have mistaken that could be the property owner or somebody that belongs there.
I don't think so. I don't know everybody in that area, but and there's a few older couples that live there. And there is a big house right there on the corner. I think that it's just rented out like at the summertime. There's young kids there and stuff. But I don't think nobody occupies it during the winter.
Okay.
But like I said, I think that house, the other big house that was just built, was still being built there. But nobody was there. I mean, there was no workers or no other vehicles or anything like that. But
So just to make sure I'm picturing this right, so the car you saw was parked down on Beachside Boulevard, kind of at like an angle, kind of right close to where the beach is that right?
Yeah, the right in front of that fence area right there that separates the beach from the parking area.
And this person was walking towards like Chippewa Road, or was this person walking in the other direction?
They were walking, they were around the edge of the water. They were heading south, towards walking towards the inlet area. like the carnival area, like that direction. Old carnival.
Walking towards the carnival area.
Yeah, like in that direction. Obviously, the carnival was down farther, but like they're walking that direction.
Okay, gotcha. Which is makes okay. I just wanted to make sure because originally I was picturing it going the other way. So you'd be technically walking away from Chippewa Road, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How long did you watch him for?
Just for, I mean, I stopped at the stop sign there, and like I said, didn't think nothing of it at the time. This was before everything came out. So, I mean, it wasn't very long, just a few seconds maybe. I just kind of caught him out of the corner of my eye, like something walked. It was kind of weird because it was very cold, and I noticed they were in shorts, and I was like, that's weird. And just gone to my parents' house.
And then later on that day, obviously, found out what happened.
Yeah, later on that day, my parents called me, they're like, oh, the cops are here, this and that's going on. I'm like, well, this morning, when I was coming to your house, I seen this person in the car. I was like, I told my parents, I was like, well, I don't know if I should say something because it's, I don't think there's enough information there to be able to help. And
You know what?
that was about it.
No, that's interesting. If that person connected to that car and that the day the body was discovered, I mean, who's to say the body wasn't kept somewhere else and dropped in the water? We don't know, and we can't prove it through this, but this is definitely an angle that is kind of really fascinating to think about. And that is what happened, that like maybe you saw the murderer or somebody that was responsible.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing funny about it. I told my mom, she kind of chuckled at me. She's like, that could have been the person, And I was like, yeah, I mean, it could have been, but.
When you reached out to me on Facebook, I thought I got to talk to this guy because there's a remote chance that is what you saw.
So who have you told so far about this?
My parents, my fiance, and there was a page on Facebook. It's not your guys' page. It's like Byron Macron page.
Yeah.
Like help find it. I messaged that page before I messaged you guys, and somebody. I actually ran the page because I wanted to share the story that I had, and I didn't know how to get in contact with you guys at the time. But somebody had messaged me back and said they were part of the family, and I had already, picked up this whole big thing and sent it after they said it was ran by the family. So, and then they just said that they would pass the information over to the authorities, and that was basically it.
Right. So when did you do that? Just recently, or is this back a little bit ago?
That was right before I messaged you guys, so just
Okay, so like
a couple days ago.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bringing that forward.
Right. You're very welcome.
One more question, and this is probably an obvious question, but was that the only car you saw when you looked?
Yeah. I don't remember any cars passing me, like coming up from that direction. I think that was the only one. That's the only one I know that I saw. I just thought it was kind of weird, like, anything about Chippewa, the people there in that town are kind of nosy and everybody's watching everybody. So it's kind of suspect that nobody's seen anything really. I mean,
Have you talked at all to Paul Hartman at all?
Well, that's about it. I mean, if you want to keep going, or
Okay. Do you care if we share this? Make sure that maybe somebody else listening to this investigate.
you want me to keep going?
No, I mean that's right.
That's about
So-
it.
I just want he definitely saw the vehicle. He's not talking about the jogger vehicle at the playground. He's definitely confident that it was at the beach, that it was Brian's vehicle.
That's what I think. I think you saw Brian's vehicle. It's
I mean,
more the person that she saw. I think that,
And it's consistent, like you stated before. It's the jogger's description. His description of the hoodie being pulled over, or the hoodie, and just I don't know if we covered it. What was Brian actually recovered in as far as clothing?
he had like a
sweater vest on and like a button down, I think, shirt underneath it. And then I think jeans and then boots, like a dress boot.
Which definitely doesn't match either the description of the jogger or the gentleman.
Right. And I mean, I asked like Victoria, like, does he wear hoodies? Like, and if you look at like any photos you see, you don't see him in any hoodies. But she said he did not wear hoodies. He did not like them. Didn't wear them. So that was her claim.
I mean, it's very interesting, especially that when you brought it up right before we filmed, I never seen or heard anything about this film. There wasn't any investigative report, which again is sort of alarming.
Folks, that seemed like a good point to break this next segment. Go into probably the third and final segment of the interview next week. Again, this entire episode up to this point is just teasers, trying to get you ready because I'm still waiting on a lot of public records requests. And I'm still getting a lot of information from people from Medina County that are contacting me. And I'm finding out more and more things every day. And it's honestly making some of my recordings obsolete at this point because I've learned more information and new information. But I would like to know if you guys would like to see some sort of roundtable. Drop comments in below because the only way I'm going to get a lot of these guys from the Invisible Ships podcast, I'm telling you, the old band back is going to be some prompting from you guys. So please drop some links, comments below if you would like to see a roundtable with perhaps the Invisible Ships podcast and Byron Macron's wife, Victoria. Let me know, and we'll see you next week.
Negative K, nothing further.